Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for being here. This session is called Echoes of the Past, Voices of the Future. The unexpected story of an Arab delegation to Auschwitz. Today, we'll hear about a remarkable journey, an Arab delegation confronting the history of the Jewish people, the Holocaust, and the truths that come with it. You'll hear from Jonah Platt and members of the delegation about what they saw, what they felt, and how the experience challenged assumptions and changed perspectives. At the core, this conversation is about courage, honesty, and the possibility of building real bridges through understanding, even when the history is painted. We're grateful you're here to listen and engage. On a personal note, as a grandson of 4 Holocaust survivors, I want to thank you for even thinking about going. I haven't even been to Auschwitz yet, so I appreciate it. And Jonah, thank you for all you do for our people. You're incredible and you're a real mensch. So enjoy the session.
Okay, good morning, everybody. You're in for a real treat. These are 3 fantastic individuals who I'm very happy to share the stage with after sharing a very special trip to Germany and Poland together this past spring that I was very fortunate to get to go on with these 3 and a bunch of other amazing people. So I want to start by asking you all, I come from the world of Hollywood, and in a screenplay, the big moment that kicks off any story off is called the inciting incident. It's where, the movie starts, we're establishing our status quo, and then something happens that changes that person's life and trajectory, and that becomes the story of the film. So I would love to know from each of you what the inciting incident was in your life that's shifted you into the work that you now have devoted your lives to. So, Fatema, let's start with you.
Hello, everyone. Very honored to be here with you all. My story started while I'm growing up, hearing one narrative as being an Arab and Muslim country, and there is something missing. I go to the school and the teacher tells me, you have to hate Israel, you have to hate the Jews. And then I go back home and I ask my mom, why I'm supposed to hate the Jews? Why I'm supposed to hate Israel? And she tells me, you're not supposed to hate anyone that you don't know. That always my mind had a debate. Should I hate them? Should I not? So growing up, I always had these questions in my mind. Thankfully, my parents were very receiving my question, answering me honestly, but I always said I wanted to go visit Israel to see it by my own eyes, and they were very supportive. And it all started with that trip to Israel after the Abraham Accords. When Sharaka was established, I decided to go see by my own eyes and meet real people, to see the narrative that I grew up hearing. Is it real or not? Am I supposed to hate the Jews or not? So the moment we landed and went to Tel Aviv, I met a stranger in the middle of the street, came running to me. At that moment, I thought he would tell me, you're not welcome, what are you doing here? We hate you. But he said, where are you from? Are you from Bahrain or Dubai? He knew immediately because of all the news about the Abraham Accord. And I answered Bahrain, my friend said Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and he said, welcome. We've been waiting to have peace with Arabs for a long time. If you tell me 10 years ago I would be welcomed by a stranger, a Jewish man in the middle of Tel Aviv street that way, I wouldn't believe that. But that was the reality. That was the reality that shocked me and opened my eyes and warmed my heart, because I thought I'll meet people that will hate me just for being Muslim, and I'm supposed to hate them back just for being Jews. But I met the real people. I met Arabs, Druze, Muslims, Jews, Christians, Bedouins, all of them were so welcoming and happy seeing me there. And I think that moment what made me realize that I have an obligation to actually share the reality and the narrative that we don't get to hear as Arab and Muslims. And since that day, I've been advocating for that reality.
Thank God. Jonathan, same question, please.
Yeah, first of all, it's a great honor to be here, and thank you for having this. My story is a little bit different because since the day that I was born, I kind of had some sort of interaction with Israelis and with the Jewish people. I was born in south of Lebanon to a father that served in the South Lebanon army that fought shoulder to shoulder with the IDF for 18 years against terror. And my childhood scenery was IDF soldiers, and growing up knowing that they're there as an allies, helping us, and we are helping them back, because hopefully one day we will have some sort of a peace agreement with each other and we will be able to live with each other. Yet, being a kid, and my parents kind of trying to shelter me, I didn't really know what is Israel, what are the Jews, and who are the Jews, and what's going on. I knew that I'm Christian, and that, my village and who we are, and that's it, basically. But then when we had to flee south of Lebanon, the only country that welcomed us and accepted us was Israel. We found shelter in this Jewish democratic state that just opened its border and gave us opportunity to not just find shelter, but to be able to live our life freely. Something that my own government and homeland didn't provide me. The most basic human thing ever. And when I started my integration into the Israeli society, speaking with my friends, I went to a Jewish Hebrew school in Israel in Haifa where I live, and kind of my first ever time kind of realizing this, I think was in the first ever Memorial Day for the Holocaust in Israel, where I was still basically don't really know Hebrew. I was standing in the court of the school. We were all standing there, waiting for the siren to go off as a memorial for the Holocaust day. And I remember that I didn't understand anything. I was like, what's happening? What is this noise that is kind of basically deaf-toning noise that kept on going for a minute or two? And I remember everyone was standing still. No one was saying anything. I was confused, but people kept on like, shh, no, that's fine. Like, wait a minute, we will explain after. And I think then kind of I started to go on and search and learn more with my classmates about it. So since then, it's history.
Amazing. Youssef, please.
Thank you very much for attending, and thank you, Jonah, for moderating this beautiful panel. So my momentum, if I would call it that way, it was mainly when I first visited Israel for the first time. It was 4 years ago. And to be honest with you, as a Moroccan born and raised in Marrakesh, I didn't know what to expect. But to go there and to see that in the Ben Gurion airport you have trilingual signs and there is Arabic, I even asked my friends if we landed on the right airport. And at the same time, you have many people wearing like hijabs and other people that they are clearly Muslims. I was really feeling weird, like maybe these Israelis put Arabs there just to make it look beautiful. But at the same time, I learned many things. I learned how that Israeli society is very diverse, how they really respect the identity of the minorities, how Arabs, between Christians, Druze, and Muslims, they are more than 20% of the Israeli population, and that really surprised me. This place is full of love. This place really respects the minority. And going to Israel as a tourist, coming back to Morocco as a Mossad agent, and our backlash and all the people that are trying to backfire me back in my home, it wasn't easy, and that's exactly my momentum.
Fantastic. So, Youssef, I want to just give folks a little bit of insight into each of sort of where you each come from. You're from Morocco. The monarchy there has been very protective of Jews, famously so during the Holocaust especially, and protective of Jewish heritage sites. But you have said yourself that 99% of the narrative you get there is Al Jazeera. And so, there's very few Jews left there. Can you sort of explain that split where it's sort of officially very protective and the government is protected, but on the ground, it's not the same vibe?
Wonderful question. I believe that most of the hate right now that we live in Morocco is the product of the propaganda. It's not a natural hate toward the Jews. I will tell you a little bit about the history of Morocco. The first Jews that came to Morocco, it was after the destruction of the first temple. The second wave was after the Spanish acquisition, when they got expelled from Spain and Portugal. They came to Morocco or North Africa, they thought there would be no Jews, but surprise, there are many Jews thriving with the Amazigh and the Berber, indigenous people of Morocco. And here you can understand that many dynasties in Morocco, they put the Jewishness in the center of their financial system. It's true, and also not only about that, but also in terms of craftsmanship. And as a matter of fact, right now, imagine that. Many dynasties all over Morocco. Some of them, they were great to Jews. Some of them, I cannot deny, they were so bad to the Jews. Still, something interesting is that imagine coming from some very bad dynasties that they put the Jews, like they give them a second status, social status, which is dhimmi, to pay jizya, to becoming the head advisor of the king right now, who is Mr. Andre Azhari. And here you can understand this evolution, that it's not just about a minority living in Morocco. It's about a really strong community that helped Morocco thrive all over the years. Right now, it's not surprised that the king is really protecting the Jews, because we are very, we recognize how they shaped our culture. Yesterday I was talking and I was putting a kippah, and people, they thought it's a kippah. No, it's a shashia for Muslims that was taken from the Jews who were used to wear the kippah. My uncle, who is a Muslim, he had to do, what do I call that? Yes, imagine a Muslim having payas. I even asked them, why do you have it? Like, I don't know, my mom told me to do it. And they are Muslims, I'm serious. So here you can understand that the hate, it's not natural. We, as Moroccans, we are the only Arab country that has a judicial rabbinic law in its own constitution. You open the constitution of Morocco right now, the first page, it has a rabbinic component in it. And this is why, you gotta ask me why, it's because we have a great leadership. Because we have a king that really understands the power of this community. We don't call it minority, I'm sorry, it's not just a minority, even if it's 2,000. It's a very impactful, influential community that helped the history of Morocco to thrive and to be who it is right now.
Fatema, I have the same question for you. Bahrain, again, very respectful of the Jewish community, politically and officially, but not always quite so amongst the people. So I was wondering if you could speak to that.
Yeah, of course. I think we have similar situation like Morocco. Growing up in Bahrain, I always say it's a special case. Bahrain is a small country, but the diversity is huge. Bahrainis are only 700,000 people, and imagine that we have a Jewish community that's indigenous to Bahrain and a Christian community that's indigenous to Bahrain, while also a lot of other nationalities from Hindus, Buddhists. Imagine all of that in a small country that we had the only synagogue in the Arabian Gulf, which is 120 years old, and it doesn't even require security. It's in the middle of the local market in Manama. You can walk to it, and it doesn't require this extensive security like we see it here in the synagogues in the US. The Jewish community have always been part of the Bahraini community. One of the members in the Shura Council, which is the higher parliament appointed by the king, is a Jew, Jewish woman. One of the ambassadors, our ambassadors to the US, used to be a Jewish woman. So we always had this Jewish component in our community, living side by the Muslims and Christians. So we always love to say coexistence and interfaith, living together is not a slogan in Bahrain, thankfully, and they're respected and part of the community. But as you said, the influence of Al Jazeera and propaganda and the media always affects people in some way. And one of the stories I love to mention is one of my best friends. She grew up very anti-Semitic because of all the things that she grew up hearing and learning from her parents or the media. When I started doing this work, she didn't cut me off. we lose a lot of friends and family because doing this work and being in relations with Jews and Israelis, but she kept her distance. She prays 5 times a day. She's very religious. Whenever she prays, she says, "May God destroy Israel and the Jews." So she grew up with this hate towards the Israeli Jews and the Jews, you know. But 2 years later, we decided to host the first delegation in Bahrain. We decided to bring mostly Arabs, Israeli Arabs, Muslims, and Christians. And there were only 2 Jews in the delegation, which is the people that I work with. So she started asking me questions. What part of Bahrain they're seeing? Where are you going? What's your plans? I told her, I'm not going to spoon feed you any information. Come and meet them. And she was like, no, I don't want to be seen with the Zionists. I was like, listen, we're in Bahrain. Worst case scenario, you'll be seen with more Bahrainis than Israelis. She was like, I don't think it's a good idea. I told her, listen, we're going to a very fancy restaurant, fancy chef. She was sold. She came for the food. She forgot her whole hate for the Jews for the food. So she came and she, by coincidence, I swear, she sat next to the Jews. There were more than 60 people there, mostly Bahrainis, only 15 people that were from Israel, most of them were Muslims and Arabs. She sat next to the Jews. I was worried. I kept looking at her the whole night, afraid that she would say something offending to them or disrespectful. By the end of the night, she came running to me and she said, Fatima, oh my God, I can't believe this. I was like, what's wrong? She was like, you know, they're just like us. I was like, of course they're just like us. They're normal human beings. She went, no, I don't mean that. They're very Middle Eastern. I was like, oh, now you're convinced. She was like, their family values are very similar to us. Their religious textbooks are very similar to us. They even look like us. Their skin shade, their hair color. I was like, oh, now you're convinced. She was like, yeah. Since that day, I always joke around her that she's a recovered anti-Semite person. She stopped saying that prayer. She became a friend of that human. She saw the human in that people. She spent only 2 hours and a dinner to build a relationship with the Israeli Jew. And I think that's what makes our work special. Although we have good relations with the Jews in Bahrain, but there's always the Zionists, the Israeli Jews that we hate. But I think it's important that we build this relationship to make people see the human into the other.
Jonathan, you have done a lot of work within Israel. You guys are both so generous. You've done a lot of work within Israel with the different Arab minorities, both sharing their voices to a global audience to help people understand the diversity and the reality of Israel, and also urging them to take ownership of their Israeli identity and to integrate into Israeli society as you have. How uphill of a battle have both of those things been? Getting people to listen to these voices outside of Israel and getting people within Israel to embrace being Israeli?
That's a really, it's a really difficult path that we chose. Like, you know, I always say that, yes, we do pay a price, but at the end of the day, I think it's worth it because it's something meaningful. It's something that will lead us all, at the end of the day, to sit at the same table, talk, and meet each other like Fatema, for example, just noticed. Because this is the most smallest thing that you can do to change the whole narrative of what's going on. And in Israel, for instance, since I began my public activity, it began inside of Israel for my own community, as part of the South Lebanon Army community, to integrate into Israeli society. For example, in my high school and middle school, our teachers decided that we should have a prayer for the fallen South Lebanon Army soldiers in the same day and the same ceremony as the National Memorial Day for the IDF fallen soldiers. They did that to make us understand that we are part of Israel's history, that we are part of what's going on in the Middle East, that we share at the end of the day the same faith and the same ideas of hopefully being able to live our life in a peaceful manner. And that kind of what led me to continue on and speak about my Israeli identity as much more significant than it used to be. Because, you know, it's easy to say that I'm Lebanese and that's it. This is my identity, this is where I was born, this is my language, I still speak Arabic. That is Lebanese Arabic. My food at home is Lebanese food. Everything is still, in my essence, is Lebanese culture. But one of them is like, we think we're better than the rest of the Arab world. Sorry, we are less than the Arab world. So this is kind of what led me to continue on speaking about it, but yet, a lot of people grew up learning only hate. This is the only language that they know, this is the only language they understand, and we're trying to bring something different. When we talk to them, we try to go on and speak with them on a different level. I don't go necessarily immediately to the Israeli side. I go to you being a student, you being involved in some sort of activities inside of Israel that is not necessarily the headline as being an Israeli, but just being a regular citizen to begin with. And from there, this is another step, because also in Israel, the Israeli Arab community is not necessarily fully integrated. We have to put it on the table. Yes, we do have equal rights, we can reach whatever we want. I can become the Prime Minister tomorrow if I want. I don't want. Let's to make it clear. I don't want that. But in order to reach that, we need to get to understanding with each other. And I always tell people, we all have so many identities that makes us who we are. I'm Lebanese, I'm Christian, I'm part of the LGBTQ plus community, I'm Lebanese, Israeli, and I try to reach out to every person I meet in one of these identities. I come from a family of 14 generations of priests. So I go to a person who's a religious Jew that maybe he has a rabbi in his family, and we can start talking about that kind of particular thing. And this is kind of where we're trying to approach that, and it's the same thing that I try to do when I go abroad to speak about Israel, to speak about the Middle East, to speak about all of these diversities that we have. Because at the end of the day, I think this is the most important work that is going on. We're talking also about like what happened in the Holocaust and delegation to Auschwitz. That happened back then because they stopped seeing Jews as human beings. We're now at that same point again, by the way. I don't know if you're aware of that. I've been experiencing that for the last 10 years on delegations to campuses and activities in the US to speak about Israel and the Jewish people. And we have now, this is our opportunity to fix that. And you could say, what's more relevant to fix that using voices from the Middle East, that comes from the Arabic countries, that comes from Muslim communities, from communities that we've never actually heard from. To be honest, I've never heard anyone from Bahrain before the Abraham Accords. It's also my fault because I've never tried to reach out because I thought it's a lost cause. But what the Abraham Accords taught us, that nothing is a lost cause. That this is something that we have to push for ourselves. If there's no one else doing it, do it yourself. And that's what Sharaka did at the beginning of the Abraham Accords. There was no one in that field connecting the Middle Eastern communities with the Israeli and the Jewish communities. And from there, look at it. We're talking at the IC conference. This is incredible.
Jonathan, that's a perfect segue to now I want to get into Sharaka. Fatema and Youssef, you both now work for Sharaka after experiencing it for yourself. So, Youssef, just tell us a little bit about what Sharaka is, what it does, what it's about, and why you pivoted your life into being such a part of it.
So, after the Abraham Accord were signed, those are like peace treaties with countries signed by officials. But there is no people-to-people civil society component to it. And this is exactly the reason why Sharaka has been created. An Israeli and an Emirati both got together to create something where they can create a sort of dynamics between the Arab world and the Israelis. Sharaka is a non-profit, non-governmental organization that tries to create bridge between Moroccans, Bahrainis, Emiratis, from all the Muslim world, also with Pakistanis, than with Israel with the help of the Americans. If I can say it in a very short way. What we have done for more than 4 years right now is that we created a lot of delegations coming from Morocco, from Bahrain, to Auschwitz, to Israel, to understand more about the culture, the history, as Jonathan has just shared with us. We create a lot of events within Morocco, within Bahrain, as Fatema has shared before, to try to enhance the understanding of the history of the Jews first, but also to see Israeli as a state, as an identity, as a culture, very diverse, but at the same time it gives the inclusion for each community. I want you to understand something about my work here in Sharaka, and I'm happy that we have many partners here. We have Noam Birov as the CEO of Sharaka, you have Ofer Hayun as the CEO of DiploAct, and those people, they really maintain a sort of philosophy, which is this: we cannot bring peace to the world right now if there is no inner understanding of all those communities. When we organize what we call right now the Holocaust Education Program, I want you really to understand what do we mean by that. We are not comparing miseries, because right now in 2026, the Arab communities are telling us, oh no, people are dying there or there, why do you teach us the Holocaust history? But they don't understand something, which is when we teach Holocaust history, it's just because those people, they don't understand what Israel is. Not only that, but Israel doesn't make sense to them. Until right now, people marching, not recognizing the state of Israel with all its borders. And this is exactly where the Holocaust education is very, very valuable. In Sharaka, we are not, I'm sorry to say that, we are not politically correct, okay? Like, we say things at risk because we are a people-to-people organization. Of course, we are aligned to our governments. Don't forget something. Me and Fatema and Jonathan, okay, Jonathan, I'm sorry for you. But we are not excommunicados, okay? We go back to our home country. I just came from Morocco 3 days ago. Fatema, same thing. We go back to our audiences. We go back to our communities to share with them what we have learned from Israel. One last thing, Jonah, about what really makes sense for me, and I will summarize it in one history. Because, listen, in the Abraham Accords, we don't want to create a sort of situationship, okay? It's not the Arabs and the Israelis, we are good for now, we will kill each other later. No. The Abraham Accords wants us to have a very long-term relationship, genuine, natural one. As Fatema said, we have genuine relationship with our Jewish community. And I will summarize it with a story, okay? When I went to Israel, I met this friend whose name is Afichai, and he lives in Beersheba, and we bonded together because his parents were born in Morocco. We really got so much connection in terms of the inside jokes and the fun and all that he shared with me all the details about his family, his new girlfriend, etc., and we became real friends. At the end of my delegation, you know what he told me? He told me, you know, Youssef, as much as I love you, I think your religion wants to kill you. Oh, that's new. Like, how come my religion wants to kill you? He told me, you know, I heard that you believe, me as a Muslim, that by the end of the time, all the people from the Jewish community will have a war with the Muslims, and you guys will hide behind trees and rocks, and then those trees and rocks will speak, and they'll tell you, here is the Jew coming, killing. Who heard about this before? Wow. I love you, Afichai, here. The thing is this, I told him, first of all, Afichai, this is impossible. I was like, why it's impossible? I told him, Afichai, you are fat. I mean, I would say you, like, you don't have to hide in a tree or to a rock. You're clearly there, Afichai, how are you? So, it is impossible. But, serious right now, it is something that I don't believe in as a Muslim. I'm sorry, I don't want to say it's BS, but it's still for me. Why? Because as much as I'm Muslim, as much as I respect my Quran, as much as I believe that there is peace between Jews and Muslims, this kind of hadiths really devalue me more than the Jews. Because I will tell you the good news. If you take the Quran alone, it is one of the most peaceful books, not only because of what I say that, but because there is verses of God promising the land to the Jews, and by the end of time, He will go back to it. I'm not saying this. Go Google Israel, the verse 104, and it's in there. So how come if we take the Quran as an algorithm and you put this as a constraint, how you want to tell me that there is a problem between Jews and Muslims and there's going to be a war? So we are not here creating a situationship. We are creating a natural relationship between Muslims and Jews. That me as a Muslim, I endorse the Zionist projects. I endorse Israel and all its borders, and I endorse its right to exist. I'm telling this naturally, without all the politics, without everything. I'm telling this as a genuine Muslim. And then we want you to understand this, and this is exactly why our program, whether in Sharaka or DiploAct, we try to do that. So I was very humble, but I had to say it.
Well worth it. If you could, Fatema, give us a sense of what's at risk for you guys for going to Israel, going on these trips. I know on the March of the Living trip we went on, depending on where people were from, they couldn't be photographed, they couldn't be mentioned that they were even on the trip. So just try to paint that picture for us so everybody understands what's at stake for you all and how this isn't just some easy decision to make.
Of course, it's not easy at all. You could lose anything and everything. For us, maybe we lost friends, family. Some people could lose jobs, could lose, the community could cut them off. Unfortunately, because it's not very popular on the people level in some countries, especially like in Bahrain, it's still baby steps for people to understand the Abraham Accord, but you could lose anything in your life because of just being in a picture with an Israeli, or even for Jonathan, an Israeli-Lebanese Christian. Just he has a part Israeli, you could lose anything in your life just because of a picture. So unfortunately, that's the hard reality, but I think that's what we do in our work, to normalize the relationship, to bring people together, to make it normal to see a picture for me and Jonathan and a Jewish person. But unfortunately, we have to do something privately sometimes, just to make people comfortable coming. Sometimes people have so many questions, wanting to know more about Israel or the Jews, but don't want to lose everything in their life. So we try as much as we can not to photograph anything, to keep the meeting private or the trip private, just for them to be comfortable taking the first step into meeting the others. Yeah, that's the sad reality, unfortunately.
Well, I know everyone in here appreciates y'all's bravery and courage and leadership for stepping up. Not easy. Okay, so let's talk about the trip, and I want to break it down into sort of three sections. There was the visit to Auschwitz itself, which we did on its own, just touring. We spent hours going around and being guided through there. There was the March of the Living, which was also at Auschwitz, but it's its own separate sort of event. And then there was everything else, being on the bus, being at Shabbat dinner, being at the hotel. So this is, open to whoever wants to jump in, and any of those, whichever of those moments are really speaking to you that were impactful. I'd love to hear what those experiences were. So actually, let's do them one at a time. So let's start with Auschwitz, just the walkthrough. Jonathan, what did that mean to you?
It means a lot to me. But first of all, I just want to take advantage of this stage and say thank you to the Acclaim Conference for actually allowing this and expanding the Holocaust education into the Arab world and into Arab countries and Muslim countries, and also bringing delegations from the Arab world to visit Auschwitz and the March of the Living. We were 35 people, except, Jonah and I and some organizers, like 30 people were from Pakistan, Afghanistan, Syria, Yemen. I was also originally from Lebanon, and Morocco. They had like 10 people from Morocco with a sheikh and religious people that came on this delegation to experience and learn and kind of see in their own eyes what went in that dark period of time in history. For me, I shared with you at the beginning that my first ever kind of experience and knowledge about the Holocaust, when I was 9 years old, in school in 4th grade, hearing the siren. I never went and visited Auschwitz. I didn't have the opportunity in 11th, 12th grade to go and visit as a school trip. But I remember standing there and not really realizing that, I've learned so much about the Holocaust, but being there and seeing how this death factory was created. It's huge. You know, you see the photos, you see the pictures, you see the movies. You've never expected it, like I never expected it, to be that huge. And only then it clicks the magnitude of how big that event was, that there's no way people around Auschwitz didn't know what's going inside of Auschwitz. We stood there and there's a road still leading to the communities that are still there since. And then you understand that when you shut your eyes and close your ears and maybe close your nose because it was smelly, you're gonna then keep going with your life and, you know, don't really put a matter to it. But this is why it continued happening back then. And I think kind of that brought me back, gave me more importance to continue on the work that I'm doing and to continue on working with Sharaka and bringing more delegation and speaking about it and making it more international. We shared also so much about this delegation online because if it's not just historic, meaningful event of bringing 30 people from the Arab world to Auschwitz, but also they continued on speaking about it in their own communities, went back. Some of them were teachers, they kept on and started teaching it in their school. This is the meaningful of it. It's not enough to just say never again. We need to actually make sure that it will never happen again. And one of it is education.
I'll just add, you know, Jonathan, you talked about the size being surprising. For me, something that was so surprising, and you don't really think about it, was seeing it in color. Because so much of what we know of Auschwitz is in black and white, in photos and historical, and then you walk in, you see, I mean, the landscape is beautiful, and there's color, and there's trees, and it just brought the whole thing to life for me in a very real way. Fatema, if you would speak about your experience walking through Auschwitz.
Of course. Visiting Auschwitz for the first time, growing up, we don't get to be taught about the Holocaust. The only thing that I know if I self-taught myself or through the Sharaka program later. So going there, I didn't know what to expect. When I walked into Auschwitz, it was very cold, it was winter. I was wearing jackets and sport shoes to be ready to walk around. The moment I got into the place and walk around, I just imagined the people that died here or survived from that place, that how could they be there with all the pictures that we saw with the light clothes and not even a shoe on their feet. How could they even survive just the winter without anything else? Being there, I was so cold, but with imagining what the people went through made me even colder, made me realize that people went through hell just for being there through the winter season. Imagining feeling all of this heavy air going through my lungs. It was a normal day, but I felt it so heavy into my body, just imagining what people went through. It was a very hard experience, and I went there 3 times in a row. The past 3 years, I had to go year after year to bring people. I brought so many Bahrainis and other people from different countries, people from Saudi Arabia that are not part of from the Abraham Accords, and other Muslim and Arab countries. They had to see it themselves. They had to see it.
Youssef, please.
You know, got my attention. A follow-up to Jonathan and Fatema. I think it was the beginning that really got my attention the most, because we had a stop in Berlin before we go to Auschwitz, and then we went to Auschwitz later on, and you know, you can see it's called the marketing of the anti-Semitism and the marketing of the Shoah prior to the Shoah itself. All those posters, like portraying Jews as the plague, portraying the Jews as the center of evil in the world. And I believe this part exactly is the most important one now to focus on, because we are seeing similar aspects or similar trends to what really happened prior to the Shoah. Right now, when we revise all the comments, we revise the anti-Semitic rhetoric right now, it is very similar to what really happened before the Shoah. And for me, as a Muslim, it's my moral obligation to stop this from the beginning. Because I understand very well that if we let this happen, when we underestimate social media, and we call them in a very undermining way, we might have something that will happen even worse than October 7th. And I believe this is exactly why people are still not condemning what happened in October 7th. Yesterday we were in a panel and we asked genuinely, do you condemn what happened in October 7th? Many Arabs, they said, no, we don't. And this is really alarming. For me as a Muslim, as an Arab, it is not only Muslims community, but also many other communities that they are so into this sort of anti-Semitism. We do this kind of Holocaust education because we believe that it's not just a comment. It is not just a post on social media. It is not just a like, or it's not just a share. It's a statement that grows over the months, that grows over years to become something very deadly towards the community, and we really need to pay attention to that.
Youssef, now talk about your experience of actually walking through as part of March of the Living, where we're seeing the Montreal Jewish community and lots of young people and all these different groups. And then the Sharaka Delegation comes through, and it's these 30 Muslims from all over the Middle East and North Africa. What did it feel like to be a part of that?
It is really beautiful to be among the Jews and their spirit and their power all over the place. I know it's a very sad place, but at the same time, the energy, the resilience of the Jewish community coming all together, and I had to make sure to bring my Moroccan hat. So everyone was like, oh, are you from Morocco? Good. And I really love that, because, yes, and the flags as well. And you mentioned that the Canadian community, many of them are Moroccans, Jewish Moroccans, that they immigrate from Morocco to Canada. And they keep asking me questions, what are you doing here? But I told them, listen, this is not a rally only for the Jews. March of the Living, it's a march of the whole humanity. And so when you can understand... So when you see that the Arabs, between the Jews and people, they are looking like that, or maybe those are troublemakers. No, we are not troublemakers. Maybe we are troublemakers to our community. But at the same time, I believe that this is exactly when we build empathy. You have no idea how much we built empathy within those delegations that they came with us to March of the Living. They came very planned. They had nothing to expect. They came back with friends. They came back with a sort of community-building spirit. They came back with power, a power for them to face their own community that they are anti-Semitic. You have no idea that I repeat this a lot. We tend to think that we are preaching to the choir, we are being March of the Living, talking now that we are with you. No, you have no idea about how the Jews in March of the Living give energy and power to the Muslims to go back and face their community with the truth and just the truth.
Fatema, if you could, would you speak a little bit about the other moments of the trip? So not being in the concentration camps, but just being with the group, whether it's at a meal or on the bus or at a Shabbat dinner, what those moments mean to you.
I think it's a very special moment for me that I'll keep for my whole life, because being there, being Muslims next to the Jews, where this place took dark part of the history, is important for us to look to the future. We saw what happened in the past, and we are learning from it, but those moments when we go to Shabbat dinners and think about the light in our lives and the work that we do together is the change that we want to do in our communities and in the future. It's important to build these relationships and bridges between Muslims and Arabs, and just being together, this human connections, being in the bus or being in Shabbat dinners is just as important as anything else that we do in that strand.
Sure. I'll share briefly, one of my favorite moments from the trip was we were on the bus, and the Moroccans broke out into song, into this like religious song, and it was just so familiar to me. I felt like I was on my bus at Jewish sleepaway camp, and like we were busting out into Hebrew song. It's the same sort of energy and celebratory joy, and everybody kind of knew the words, and it was just an amazing thing. And it's just that was such a great reminder of how there's so much more that we share in common that divides us.
We share God. We share one Hashem, and that makes sense.
That too. Jonathan, same question as Fatema. Speak about some of those in-between moments and what you got from those.
I think one of the most significant things that happened to me is after we would go back to the hotel. Like, for example, we started in Berlin. We toured around and we saw some significant places. Then we went to the
Avanti,
yeah,
where
the final solution was discussed as in on breakfast, while they're sipping coffee and eating bacon, whatever. I eat bacon, but that particular moment, that wasn't. I'm allowed to. Sorry, I'm and I remember kind of taking all of this, going and speaking with them about what we just saw, what we just read, what we just learned about these events, and also them kind of trying to realize what we just went through right now. But I remember the relief moments at the end of every day. We would, we're from the Middle East, all of us are smokers, almost. So we would stand there, smoke cigarette after cigarette, also from, I think, the anxiety that we went through that day. But we would also ventilate out kind of our, how would you say that? Our frustration with what is happening now, connecting it back to the history, talking about the importance of speaking about it and mentioning it and continuing on the history lesson. When we toured through Auschwitz, I remember that I think all of us kind of took place for ourselves. We kind of stopped being a whole group that was super connected throughout the trip, and everyone kind of went through their own journey. They took in what the tour guides were talking about and the stories that we heard, the images that we've seen. And I think that moment kind of where I understood that there was such a strong group that it's fine that now everyone is taking his time or their time to just kind of experience that experience by themselves. We felt so safe with each other. We felt that no matter what, I can cry, I can talk to and share also frustration, but we all were there with each other. And for me, that was a euphoric moment that I've never expected to experience with a group that diverse from the Arab Muslim world. Never in my dreams I imagined that it would happen. Even my first delegation, for example, to Dubai, I was one of the first delegations that Sharaka took to Dubai, even before they officially signed the agreements. We were already on a flight, Israeli Arabs and Jews, to Dubai to meet with students in Dubai, to meet with high officials, and to start building that connection with people. I remember going there, I'm like, never expected to be in an Arab country again after leaving Lebanon. But then this happened, and it brings back all the hope. And kind of looking forward to see it expand more in the future and to just be us. This is kind of what I say to people.
All right, we have a couple minutes left, so I want to open it up to you all if there are any questions for our panelists here. I see one right here in the front row.
For the first part, thank you. For the first part is that we try as much as we can to reach to Muslim communities, of course, because they're the audience that we need mostly. Here in the US, not as much after October 7. People are afraid, but we still have a lot of relationships with African American imams here. Some of them came to our programs or into the interfaith program for imams and rabbis, that they go back to their communities and educate them. But also at the same time, a lot of those imams host us in their mosques and communities. And of course, it's the hardest crowd, and we always love to challenge ourselves. We want them to hear our narrative and our stories coming from. We confuse them. When they see me with the hijab and Muslim and Arab, I came from the Middle East, they know no one knows better about the Middle East than me, you know? They come attacking me, then I answer them with any answer, you know, but at the end of the night, they listen and they said, of course there is a minority that they will keep shouting the whole night, it happens. But yeah, we try as much as we can to reach all communities, mostly Muslims, but also Christians, Jewish, university campuses where we go around the US to different campuses where a lot of students from different nationalities, Arabs, Palestinians, Muslims, most of them thankfully by the end of the night they come hugging us, thanking us, building connection, wanting to know more.
Fatema, there was also this delegation that we had 2 months ago from America, it's from the Black Muslim community, that it was something around 8 to 10 imams that they came to Israel. And we had to create this delegation. Imagine after October 7th until now, and there are still imams from the Black Muslim community. It's just on a side note that I would love to share with you this. You know, Muslims right now in the world are very diverse. And if, as Americans, you want really to build genuine connections with the Muslim community, I advise that you build them now with the Black Muslim community. Not the immigrated Muslim community, because sadly they brought the anti-Semitism from their home countries to America. But the Black Muslim community is genuinely more open than those communities, and I can feel it. Many times I come here to America, I go to the mosque on Friday. Some mosques I'm afraid for myself, like sometimes I turn right and left, even if it's a mosque, because I'm like, oh, I don't know who is who. But for the Black Muslim community, I feel more serenity. Because I know that they embraced the American values, the most civilized values, and also they grew up with Jews here in America, and also they assimilated Jews because they were a minority in a particular moment, and they see themselves as a minority, as Black Muslim community. And this is exactly my takeout here, is that the Black Muslim community is an asset right now to fight anti-Semitism. I'm not assuming all of them share with you the same thing, but at least they're way better than the one that immigrated from their home country.
Yeah, right here.
I can share that. I also work with DiploAct. It's another pro-Israeli organization that started this activity back in 2017 to specifically go on college campuses and speak with anti-Israeli students to try and kind of show our story. Because what we meant is we would see all of these anti-Israeli weeks on college campuses, where they will build this huge wall with a lot of misinformation, a lot of false information. And one of the main things that we thought could deal with that, and we were really successful for a period of time, bringing Arab delegations from Israel, Christians, Muslims, because the majority of them talk specifically about us as minorities living in Israel. They say that Israel is discriminating against us. They say that we have systematic racism. They say that there's an apartheid in Israel and we can't actually, be who we want to be, and there's a glass ceiling above our heads. And we went there and faced them face to face, these anti-Israeli students. And by the way, I was surprised when I started going with DiploAct back in 2017. I was surprised that there were Jews fighting me when I was defending Israel.
Me too.
I'm like, they would refer me as an Uncle Tom or whatever. I'm like, I'm not nobody's uncle, okay? First of all, now I am an uncle actually, so that's
Also.
But second of all, my name is Jonathan. I don't really understand where they come from. But then I realized, and this is what happens also with, for example, the Lebanese diaspora in college campuses. The majority of the Lebanese Christians and a lot of Lebanese minorities fled during the 80s when the civil war in Lebanon was at its highest peak. And what happened then is that Palestinian terrorists from the PLO, with the leading of Yasser Arafat, they butchered and persecuted Christians, Shia Muslims, and Druze communities in South Lebanon. One of the first things that my mom told me after October 7th, I was basically listening to her speaking with her friend, was that what they did in south of Israel is the same thing that they did to us throughout the 70s and 80s. The same MO. They would go into villages, Christian villages, and just execute everyone in their way. Toddlers, children, women, elderly, men. And a lot of these who fled in the 80s never talked about their experience. Never shared with their kids what they went through. The only reason that I know so much today is because I kept on nudging my parents, asking them questions. My mom, for example, she doesn't want to talk about it. She blames me, by the way, for a lot of things. There was an arrest warrant against me in Lebanon for 15 years of labor work. I don't do labor work, so that's not gonna happen. But she says that it's only because I don't keep my mouth shut, because I talk about it. I go against Hezbollah, I go against the Lebanese government that didn't protect us. And I see them also as lost kids, because they don't know their history. And I'm not blaming you here for the mistakes of your kids that are not necessarily going that, but their environment surrounding them, the pressure that they are going through. And in some way, they feel privileged for growing up in a safe place, for growing up having a comfortable life, and they see the others that are not facing the same way, and they kind of blame themselves for living comfortably. That set of mind I will never understand. Because I know a lot of anti-Israeli, anti-Zionist Jews who their parents are the biggest Zionists I've ever met in my life. And it feels as if it's like a rebel phase that they're going through. They just want to stick it to their parents. Or blame them that they didn't expose them to more opportunities or more options. But I don't think that there are more opportunities or more options than to stand beside Israel and support Israel. Because if Israel doesn't exist, the history will repeat itself even worse than it is. The only reason that in Israel the Jews are technically safe is because of the IDF. Without the IDF, there would be no Jews in the Middle East.
Let's keep that applause going. That's our time. Thank you so much to Fatema, Jonathan, and Youssef, and to all of you. Thank you.